Thank you for joining me once again. These are Day Texts with Greg Stafford, where we meet every weekday morning at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to consider a portion of the biblical record or other related texts and histories that we can use to better our understanding of our past, of our future, and of our current life. So we use these day texts to study things that we can apply so we're prepared for what's coming. We can better deal with things now, and we can understand what took place before we arrived. So we work our way primarily through the biblical books, but at times we also consider other texts. And at this time, we're working our way through the letter to the Hebrews. So we're in chapter 11, which has been discussing examples of faith from people of old, who reacted or responded to things that they observed or evidence that they were presented with, but not entirely, where they didn't know everything or know anything for sure. They just had good reasons, the best available to them, in order to believe. So we have discussed, for example, people like Abraham, who was from the ancient city of Ur, and whom Jah selected as one through whom he would bring about a nation of people, the nation of Israel, and then through whom that nation he would bring a Messiah or Savior of humankind. Okay, so we're picking up with that basic line of thought, and we're still with Abraham, and we're going to read verses 17 through 22 of chapter 11. Then we'll make a brief application and we'll be on our way. Okay, I'll start with verse 17. With faith, Abraham had presented Isaac when he was being tested. It is the one who accepted the promises who was presenting his uniquely born child. Verse 18, about whom it was said by Isaac, a seed will be named for you, quoting Genesis 21:12. Verse 19, Abraham figured God is so powerful, he can even raise a person from the dead, where he received Isaac back, but in a figurative way. Verse 20, with faith, Isaac asked for divine favor to be upon Jacob and upon Esau, even about future things. Verse 21, with faith, Jacob, as he lay dying, asked for divine favor to be upon each of the sons of Joseph, after he bent over the top of his staff. Verse 22, with faith, Joseph, when near death, thought about the exodus of the sons of Israel from Egypt, and he gave orders about what to do with his bones. Let's read the note that I put there on verse 22, quoting Josephus and Jewish Antiquities, where he writes that Joseph gave orders about his bones. He writes about that. He says, Moses and his brother Aaron were bringing with them the bones of Joseph in accordance with that patriarch's injunctions to his sons. And so we have a lot of information here having to do primarily with three figures, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, of course, that all fall in line with the promises that Jah gave about the sons of Israel. So with Abraham, as we remember, and I did a video, well, I didn't do a video on this, but in one of my videos, I talked about this, and I keep meaning to put a clip up to explain this account involving Abraham and Isaac, and how Jah asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, and how so many people today see that and they think that, they look and they say, well, why would God do that? Well, first of all, he didn't have him do it, right? He didn't actually have him go through with it. He stopped him. So why put a servant of yours through something like that in the first place? Why would Jah choose someone like Abraham and then have him go through this pretend sacrifice of his own son? The reason is because Jah was developing the body of his son, through whom he would bring him, through which he would bring in the line of David, and in whom he would put the person of his son Jesus from heaven. But the body had to be prepared. That's what we're told in Psalms, and as is quoted in the book of Hebrews here. Not in this text, but in the book. Because it applies it to Jesus in reference to the body that he lived in and then gave in sacrifice to Jah. You prepared a body for me, is the quotation from the book of Psalms. So Jah has been preparing a body for the seed, the one he promised in Genesis, that would rescue us from the death that we inherited from Adam and Eve. So he is preparing through these developments, through these relationships, through these tribes, and through the laws of Moses that helped keep the nation of Israel pure or purer than they would have been, so that the development of his son would take place in the context of people who knew law and who were not as contaminated with sin as other nations were. Because even though Jah was going to give his son, make him the last Adam so that he didn't have sin inherited from Adam to deal with, he still could have sinned. He still had to live in an actual body like Adam and like you and I do. But the body had to be prepared in a way made by Jah so that it at least had the abilities to go through the things that the Messiah had to endure. One of which was dying faithful to Jah. So by having Isaac go through that process of submitting to his father, remember this was during a time and in a context where the nations regularly offered sacrifices of humans and animals to their gods. So this would not have been an unknown thing at all, especially coming from the city of Ur and other places in Mesopotamia, where human sacrifices were done. So by having him go through this sort of mock sacrifice, it not only showed Jah that these two had the right genes, the right qualities of humankind that would allow them to pass on those traits through to the son, who would then have to go through those physical tests and meet a body that at least had the genetic history of having gone through a similar experience so that it would not be foreign to his flesh. You see, so the genetic inheritance from people like Abraham and Isaac after going through these activities were part of the preparation of the body that Jesus had to live and die in. That's why he made Abraham and Isaac go through this. He was not interested in having Isaac sacrificed. That's abhorrent to Jah. But he knew he needed to have a quality in Isaac's traits that would be usable for his son, who was about to do something he didn't want to do either, but was doing because he loved us and recognized the need to redeem us because of the way that we lost our life and relationship with Jah. So all of this, these spirits are involved in everything. More than we could probably imagine. But it's a good thing we don't see it all the time or we'd be too distracted. But this is what they do. They are very involved with relationships, tribes, nations, peoples. Every name of every family on earth, like Paul says, owes that name to the Father. He's the one bringing everybody together and causing seeds to be born and lines to develop so that he can use or test different people, so that when he's ready to reap the earth of the ones who have endured for his name and Jesus' name, then he can do it, knowing that they've been tested in ways that showed their quality of faith and that we have endured to the end. Just like Jesus says in Matthew 24:12. Same things in Revelation. All over the place it tells us we have to conquer and observe Jesus' deeds to the end. In Revelation 3:5. You know, people today think they can never lose their faith, never lose their salvation. You shouldn't even be thinking about losing or having it. You should be thinking about Jah. Praise Jah. Follow Jesus. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Stop thinking about whether you're going to live or die in the future. Just live now. And if you die in the future, then what you do now will decide whether you live again. People get all caught up and they spend all their time trying to understand very simple texts or that are teachings that are explained by other texts, and everything passes them by while they sit there and keep asking these questions, keep wondering why, instead of just praising Jah and pushing forward with the things that we can show are true based on the best available reasons. Don't let anyone deceive you by accounts like Genesis involving Abraham and Isaac to make you think that Jah's an unloving God, or as one philosopher said, if God asked me to sacrifice my son, I'd ask him for some ID. Well, you wouldn't need ID from God if he were asking you to do that. You would know who you're dealing with. But he did not ask him, he didn't actually have him do it. As I said, the people and this so-called philosopher who made that comment, they don't even read the accounts, okay? They just take these references and they think about them apart from the account and they, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, of course it doesn't make sense. You didn't spend time looking it up in the context of the time in which these people lived, or the other texts that tell you why the God Jah is talking to them at all. What's the whole point of him even talking to Abraham? They don't even ask that question. They have no idea what's going on. Yet it's explained right there in the opening 3 chapters of Genesis. The seed that Jah promised is the same seed he promised to Abraham, or that through his lines he would develop, which then explains the whole account involving Isaac. So I spent a little more time on that because it's such an important account. And Abraham knew, he figured if Jah wants me to do this in the context of times when nations are doing this, I guess this is what I have to do, and I trust that Jah can bring him back. He didn't fully understand it, but he had faith based on the reasons he understood due to the being he was encountering in the context in which he lived. And so the same with people like Isaac and Jacob, who went on to do good things and who blessed those whom Jah wanted them to bless, and including Jacob over Esau, but even giving a blessing to Esau that fit the context of the future things. Remember, I start out this day text talking about how these day texts help us to prepare for the future, to deal with what we're facing now, and also to learn from the past. So they have a 100% application in terms of past, present, and future. And it was the same for people back then. They were looking at the past, they were looking at the events that occurred before them, dealing with their present situation, and then looking on how they would deal with the future, whether it involved the future life of his son Isaac, or the future city that built by God that we talked about yesterday in yesterday's day text. So they were very much aware of the future and the things that would be coming while they were dealing with the present. So, and then with Joseph, we hear a lot about the ossuary of Joseph's bones, and whether or not that's true, I'm not sure. But we do know that Joseph gave orders for his bones to be removed from Egypt, and that we have other corroborating accounts, like from Josephus, that this did in fact occur. So the day text today really captions the ideas of faith as they were presented through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as well as Joseph, but primarily in regards to Abraham and Isaac. And you notice it talks about Isaac being his only begotten, or as I put in the Great Message translation, uniquely born child. And the reason why, and those two terms essentially mean the same thing. They can be different, because you can be the only begotten and then there are no other children. But you can also be the only begotten with other children, as we see here in this reference, since we know that Abraham also had a child with Hagar. And so in this case, it's a special begotten, because it wasn't even something Abraham believed could happen because of his advanced age. But Jah got involved, according to Genesis, and made it so Isaac could be especially generated and then born. So it was a uniquely born child. Isaac was uniquely born, or only begotten, but then you have to explain it in reference to him being the only child of Sarah and Abraham, since Abraham also had Ishmael by Hagar. So that's why I put uniquely born, because of the special involvement of Jah with Isaac in making it unique and special in that way. And so only in that sense. Only and unique have a close relationship when it comes to, if you're the only one of something, you're unique. So they have a very close meaning in that application. And I use the same translation in John 1:18. Only begotten is fine. But again, you have Jesus as one of the sons of God. God has other sons. So it's his generation that is unique. He's the firstborn. And the one, in our view, the only one directly made by Jah, not through someone else like him, the medium, through other beings, through whom other beings were made. So uniquely born or only begotten in the case of both Isaac and Jesus in John 1:18 and Hebrews 11:17 fits because of the special quality of their generation from the Father, as well as the fact that they are the only son of both the Father and Abraham in a unique way, although they are still the begotten child of Abraham and Jah, respectively. So keep those things in mind. Some good information for us in today's text as usual. We'll keep working our way through the letter of Hebrews, and we'll keep doing the best we can to praise Jah. So I see someone has a question about whether we're going to do like a Sunday live stream. Eventually, I will try, to have like a more of a congregational type stream with more people here and more people there, and we'll try to connect them all together. But for right now, keep in mind I'm very busy. That's why I have to get up and do these day texts so early. I work pretty much full time, and I have kids on the weekend. So it's not easy, but it can be done. So I do everything I can. I appreciate the suggestions. I'll keep trying. And as my kids get a little older and I get more settled in ways that can make it easier for me to do more, then I will. But right now I have various writing projects I'm working on, and other things make it very difficult for me to have a lot of extra time. But we're just starting, right? I think even today's the 19th. So I started these day texts almost 3 months ago to the day. So it has not been very long. I started them right around November 20th. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. We'll just keep going. We'll keep helping people wherever we can. We'll keep spreading the great message, teaching people about Jah and Jesus and how we can treat others the way we want to be treated. Those are our 3 things, what we promote above and beyond all else. But we do talk about other things. So I appreciate all of you joining me. I always benefit from our day text together. I hope you do too. And I will be back tomorrow for another day text as we work our way through the letter of Hebrews.